Fake People, Real Trivia is presented by the Sherpas Podcast Picks. It is a trivia podcast generated by artificial intelligence, and our source references are listed in our show notes. You can submit questions to us through our social media pages or email us at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. We'll try our best for correct answers, but if we get them wrong, remember that we're only human. Never mind. We're not.
Fake people, real trivia. That's what this podcast will give you. Those AI bots, they know lots. They'll fill your brain when they explain. Fake people, real trivia. From Hong Kong to Bolivia. The players may be from Sherpaloo, but they know exactly what to do. If you've got a question, they will give an answer. They just scour the internet, and you just might win that bar bet. Fake people, real trivia. From Concoma to Namibia. If you yell Viva la Sherpolution, they're here with your trivia solution. Cause it's time for Fake People, Real Trivia. Trivia, round Concoma to Namibia. If you yell Viva la Sherpolution, they're here with your trivia solution. Cause it's time for Fake People, Real Trivia.
Welcome to Fake People, Real Trivia, an AI podcast hosted by the Sherpaloo Studio players. Each week, we provide you with trivia from around the world. This week's episode has to do with one of the biggest conspiracy theories in rock music. It's the story of Paul McCartney allegedly being killed on November 9, 1966, and replaced by a lookalike while he was in the Beatles. Bear in mind that there are numerous variations of this story. The story goes that McCartney stormed out of a songwriting session with the Beatles, working on the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album, and drove off in his Austin Healey into the London fog, then ran through a red light, ultimately getting killed in a car crash. There were some tales of being gruesomely scalped during the crash, but you'll see how this detail plays into the conspiracy theory in a bit. The theory goes on that, instead of dealing with the loss of a band member, the band decided to replace him with the winner of a Paul McCartney lookalike contest, which nobody can date, named either William Shears Campbell, apparently referenced as Billy Shears on Sgt. Pepper, or William Shepherd, who is supposedly referenced in the continuing story of Bungalow Bill. William Campbell, who nobody can trace, since he was described as an orphan from Edinburgh, was then hired to take Paul's place. Not only did Campbell, or Shepherd, who ultimately became known as Billy Shears, resemble McCartney, he could play left-handed bass, and write songs and sing like him. Now, before we go any further, on some of the dates that were mentioned, McCartney was away with his then-girlfriend, Jane Asher, and would not have been driving on the M1, as rumoured. Also, in response, the Beatles press officer had called McCartney at his home, and Paul answered the phone. Although during this time, McCartney was indeed involved in 2 separate car accidents, clearly, neither was fatal. In spite of all of this, the rumour gained momentum on college campuses through newspaper articles parodying the rumour and radio stations, who received calls from listeners which expounded on the theory. A television special was broadcast on WOR in New York, titled, Paul McCartney, The Complete Story, Told for the First and Last Time. It was set in a courtroom and hosted by celebrity lawyer F. Lee Bailey, who cross-examined college student Fred Larbour and other proponents of the theory, and heard opposing views from witnesses such as McCartney's friend Peter Asher, brother Mike McCartney, and Beatles manager Alan Klein. It should be noted that Larbour told Bailey before the show aired that he made the entire story up, but the show aired anyway. The theory of McCartney's death then states that the surviving members were so racked with guilt that they worked with MI5 to leave clues about McCartney's death on their album covers and in their lyrics. By the time that their album Abbey Road was released, the conspiracy theory was in full bloom, making the album one of their biggest sellers. So let's look at the clues, album by album. Some say that on the Revolver album track, Got to Get You Into My Life, the earliest clue is in the opening lyrics of I Was Alone, I Took a Ride, I Didn't Know What I Would Find There. The album cover shows a hand over Paul's head, but we'll discuss this in a minute. Now to the Sgt. Pepper album. On the cover, there is a wax figure of the band appearing to be in mourning, on the front left. There is a floral decoration of white flowers on the shape of a guitar, with 3 stems, signifying 3 surviving Beatles. If you look at that flower arrangement with the album turned upside down, the formation of the hyacinths appears to spell Paul, followed by a question mark. A mysterious hand over McCartney's head was theorized to be a priest's final blessing. The small doll in front of the word Beatles is the Hindu god Shiva, representing destruction and creation, who appears to be pointing at both McCartneys. If you hold a mirror to the bass drum where it says Lonely Hearts, the reflection reads I1XIX, he die, which some interpret as 11/9, he die, which is the alleged date of the crash. The Shirley Temple doll on the right side appears to be wearing a bloody driving glove. On the gatefold sleeve of the album, McCartney is wearing an armband with the letters OPD, which some interpreted as officially pronounced dead, when in actuality, it came from the Ontario Provincial Police, OPP. On the back cover, McCartney's back is to the camera. With a little help from my friends introduces Billy Shears, who sings What Would You Think If I Sang Out of Tune, Would You Stand Up and Walk Out on Me? George Harrison's hand appears to be pointing to the Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock lyric, from She's Leaving Home, the alleged time of his death. McCartney's head is to the left of the Without You in the title of Within You, Without You. Some theorized that McCartney picked up a meter made the night he was killed, and the lyrics to Lovely Rita include I took her home, I nearly made it. The lyrics to A Day in the Life include, he blew his mind out in a car, he hadn't noticed that the lights had changed, a crowd of people stood and stared, they'd seen his face before, nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Lords. Also, Good Morning starts with the lyric, nothing to do to save his life. There are claims that during the Sgt. Pepper reprise that toward the end, you can hear Paul is dead, yeah, really dead, being yelled toward the end. Now, to the Magical Mystery Tour album. There aren't many clues in the songs, with the exception of the end of Strawberry Fields Forever, where John Lennon sounds as if he is saying I buried Paul, when in reality, he is saying cranberry sauce. Blue Jay Way appears to have whispered vocals about Paul being buried, in the opening lines. The ending of I Am the Walrus include dialogue from King Lear, referencing dying. Also, while fans theorized Paul was the walrus, there appears to be a subtitle of No You're Not, said Little Nicola. The word walrus is allegedly Scandinavian for the word coffin. Rumors alleged by holding the album upside down in front of a mirror gave a secret phone number with information on Paul's death, but this did not turn out to be true since it belonged to a journalist for The Guardian who was plagued with phone calls. But some have claimed there was a voice recording, saying, "You're getting close." There are also clues found in the album's booklet. McCartney, dressed as a major, is seated at a desk, with a sign in front of which appears to read, I was. Another image is of him with a black carnation in his lapel, and he has black flowers when he is dressed as a wizard. There is a cartoon image of him with a letter L on his forehead, again referencing the decapitation. Fans theorized McCartney was in the black walrus suit, when in reality, he was the hippo. Another photo shows a hand over his head again, as on the Sgt. Pepper album. This image is also repeated on the Yellow Submarine album cover. On the topic of Yellow Submarine, on All You Need Is Love during the movie, fans claim to hear the words Yes he's dead, we loved you yeah toward the end of the song. Also in the lyrics to Only a Northern Song are When You're Listening Late at Night. You may think the bands are not quite right if you think the harmony is a little dark and out of key. You're correct, there's nobody there, referencing the absence of a bass player. On the album, The Beatles, better known as the White Album, there are numerous clues. Glass Onion is interpreted as a coffin with a glass cover, including the lyric Here's another clue for you all, the walrus was Paul. Much backward masking is referenced on this album. Playing John Lennon's I'm So Tired backwards sounds like Paul is a dead man, miss him. Playing Revolution 9 backwards reveals, Turn Me On Dead Man, and supposedly includes sounds from a car accident. Don't Pass Me By has the lyric, You were in a car crash, and you lost your hair. The insert poster allegedly has a picture of William Campbell and another of McCartney with a scar on his lip, representing plastic surgery performed on Campbell. Lastly, there were clues to be found on Abbey Road, their last recorded album, when the conspiracy was in full bloom. The way the Beatles are dressed signifies a funeral procession. John in white as a religious leader, Ringo as an undertaker, George as a gravedigger, and a barefoot Paul as the corpse, since many supposedly buried that way in some cultures. Paul is also out of step and has a cigarette in his right hand, although he is left-handed. The police van pictured is one commonly at traffic fatalities. Also, a Volkswagen Beetle has a license plate of LMW 28IF, which some interpreted as Linda McCartney, widow, and Paul would have been 28, if he lived. Although he was 27, in 1969, many cultures believe a person is one when they are born. Also, McCartney was not with the then Linda Eastman in 1966. On the album's back cover, several dots before the word Beatles form the number 3 if connected, denoting the surviving Beatles. Some have also claimed that if the album is tilted slightly to the left and counterclockwise, the shadows on the wall form a human skull. Of course, the lyrics to some of the songs on the album also enhanced the theory. The images listed of Come Together's lyrics such as Here Come Old Flat Top might reference Paul's head injuries, but in reality, it was lifted from a Chuck Berry song, You Can't Catch Me. He Wear No Shoeshine may refer to the barefoot Paul. Got to be good looking cause his so hard to see may refer to the absence of the cute Beatle. Got to be a joker, he just do what he please might refer to the hoax of Billy Shears as his replacement. And the line 1 and 1 and 1 is 3 indicates the 3 surviving Beatles. The title itself could refer to the surviving Beatles coming together over Paul's grave. The Sun King was the French King Louis XIV. In the novel, The Man in the Iron Mask, written by Alexander Dumas, is Louis XIV's twin brother who, through an elaborate plot, comes to replace the Sun King, supporting the story that Paul had been replaced by a lookalike. Also, You Never Give Me Your Money contains the line All good children go to heaven. Golden Slumbers could be a reference to the big sleep, death, and the album's Closer is titled The End. Carry That Weight could be interpreted as a pallbearer's task along with the heavy burden on the remaining Beatles after Paul's death. Ultimately, the Beatles consistently denied that this theory was true. McCartney had even stated, I am alive and well and concerned about the rumors of my death. But if I were dead, I would be the last to know. He also released a live album, titled, Paul is Live, complete with a parody of the Abbey Road album cover. We hope that you've enjoyed this mini-season of Fake People Real Trivia. If you've got a trivia question that we can turn into an episode, please contact on our social pages on Sherpolution, or email us at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. The Sherpaloo Studio Players would like to dedicate this episode to the memory of Paul McCartney fan, Jordan Runtog. To be clear, Jordan is alive and well, and co-hosting his podcast, Too Much Information. We just want him to remember that he owes us $8 for lunch. Also, if you play the episodes of Too Much Information backwards, you'll hear his co-host, Alex Hagel, singing Margaritaville. It's something we found on the internet. Anyway, please be sure to also catch Podcast Picks with Jim the Podcast Sherpa. Unfortunately, the Sherpa has not yet been replaced with a lookalike who has talent.
Hey, thanks for listening to our crazy show. Fake People Real Trivia. Stick around, who knows where we'll go. Tell all of your friends and your cousin Olivia. Hit us up on socials at Sherpolution. Slide into our DMs with no confusion. Join the party, join the fun. We won't leave you the check when we're done. You made it this far, give yourself a cheer. We're laying down the facts, there's no need to fear. Your support is everything, makes it clear. Please spread the word, but we can't buy you a beer. Tell your friends, tell your fam, it's all facts, it ain't no scam. Nonsense knowledge, that's our jam. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Hit us up on socials at Sherpollution. Leave a review on your favorite podcast institution. Join the party, join the fun. Okay, you can go home now, it looks like we are done.